lot of this comes from...
Do you want a shot while you tell the story?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's make that happen.
It's time for the Garage Boozing Podcast.
What's up, nerds, and welcome back to another episode of the Garage Boozing Podcast. I'm your host, the man with absolutely no plan, the Chase with the face for radio, Chase Shurga. And boy, do I have an exciting episode for you guys today. I bring back one of your favorite guests, Ben Wilcox, Mr. Conspiracy himself, and this conversation is awesome. So folks, you know what time it is. It's time to sit back, relax, kick your feet up, crack open a cold one, and if you're really feeling fruity, take a shot. Why not? Because this week's episode of the Garage Boozing Podcast starts now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Garage Boozing Podcast. Today I am joined by one very special guest to my right, your left if you're watching on YouTube. We have the return of Ben Wilcox. Ben, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back.
I put this on social media earlier that we were going to be having Ben back on the podcast. I always say we. It's not we, it's me. One-man show. But anyway, I was going to be having Ben back on the podcast. And it is so funny. Well, I don't know why I said it's funny. Not really funny, but it's very cool that the reception from Ben's first episode was absolutely unreal. One of my most popular episodes yet. People love the conspiracy talk. So I was like, hey, we got to have him back soon. I took a little longer than originally anticipated, but you know what? In life, you get a little busy sometimes.
Here we are.
Here we are, ready to have a conversation.
Yeah, man. I think conspiracy theories are fun. You know, we can talk about a lot of other things that are, but you know, I think everybody enjoys a good conspiracy theory.
Everybody, and the thing is because it just gets the mind boggling, you know.
Well, there's a lot of things out there that are, you know, worth looking into, and when you start to look into them, and you start to realize that this is more than just, you know, a fun topic that might be, you know, there's
the rabbit hole.
Yeah, the rabbit hole.
The rabbit hole exists, man. Like when you watch a conspiracy theory video on like YouTube or something, and then like the related videos always get you, man.
You know what I miss though? The old YouTube.
Oh, of course.
I had said this briefly in the last podcast, is that YouTube is different now, and
way different.
It used to be like that rabbit hole was really deep, and there was a lot of just weird shit in there, and they got rid of a lot of that stuff, and some of it was just bullshit, but it was still fun. It was,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely. Yeah. YouTube's definitely changed, especially ad-wise too. Oh my God, so many ads.
And I think a lot of people feel the same way, and I wonder how much revenue is really coming from those ads. Is like how many people are actually like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, I'm gonna go and buy that right now. Pause the YouTube video.
Dude, you know what's funny? They don't even make money just from the ad. Well, actually, the company's running the ads. I don't know how that works, but the YouTubers, like, if you sit there and you just watch the ad, they're getting paid. You click the ad, you don't have to buy anything. The YouTuber's getting paid. So the company behind it, I'm not sure, but it is very interesting concept behind it.
It would be really interesting to see where the money actually is, to see the actual how that works, because obviously they're making money off, or they wouldn't be doing it.
Well, yeah. So like,
it doesn't seem like
back in the day, I like before I had the podcast and everything, like I had a successful YouTube channel, CopyAndChase, back in the day. Shout out to the OGs that still watch the podcast here on the channel. But yeah, so CopyAndChase, I was like, dude, 16, 17, 18 years old, and I'm getting 20, 30,000 views on my videos. That's it. And I was making like $1,000 a month at that age. And it was nuts. Yeah. Of course, this was YouTube 10 years ago, so it was a lot different then. But like now, like how it worked back then is like how I just said. You could choose when you set the ads in your videos, and then people got really greedy and would put them like every like 2 minutes and like at like 4 like 30-second commercials. Yep. I do love that YouTube has the feature where after 5 seconds, most of the time you can hit skip this ad. Thank God for that. But like, yeah, dude, I would put a commercial in the beginning, a pop-up ad here, stuff like that. All the person had to do was look at it, and I got some money. If they clicked it, I got more money, and it was just wild.
You know, one thing to think about, though, with all of this is that we are really fortunate, and I don't think a lot of people realize what we're witnessing happening with the internet having, because I'm obviously older than you, but it was in your lifetime, too. There was a time very recently where we didn't have the internet. Everything changed. Everything changed. And
I do remember life before the internet.
If you think about the way that technology has changed everything we do in the last few years, or the last decade at least, it's like a renaissance. It really is. It's a point in history that will be looked back on 100 years from now. Will be like when the internet came and everything changed.
Oh yeah.
And we're here watching it happen. And so just seeing like the growing pains of things like, I wish YouTube was like it used to be, that kind of thing. At the same time, I really appreciate the fact that we are experiencing and witnessing this in a time of history that won't be forgotten anytime. Well, as long as humanity survives.
Yeah, right. Now, did you have MySpace?
I did.
Dude, I loved MySpace.
There's a conspiracy theory behind that. You want to hear that
About
one?
MySpace.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can I just tell you why I loved MySpace first? So I loved MySpace because you had so much customization.
Everyone
everyone
loved
did. Yeah, so
MySpace.
you could literally like edit your own layout. You could like stuff like that. My friend Kyle taught me how to like literally change my whole MySpace layout. I would edit that and like make different sections, different graphics.
Regular people learn how to code.
Yeah, literally, yes.
Yeah.
I would literally like you could take the source code from someone else's layout and then edit it yourself, and like it's so cool.
But if you were interested in it and you were looking at it, you can kind of understand what that code means.
Right.
And that got a lot of people looking
Like
at
the
that.
URL for the image and bold font, stuff like that.
It'd
Yeah.
be interesting to see how many people went on to do that type of programming after having that experience, or that, doing this stuff on. So anyway, MySpace, when it went away, it wasn't because people didn't like it
Is
anymore.
this a conspiracy? Conspiracy?
No, well, yes, it is. But it's also truth. MySpace didn't go away because people didn't like it anymore. Everyone loved MySpace.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like
It went away because it went away. So Facebook,
they kept changing it though. They changed MySpace a lot
well,
towards the end.
sure,
After
and-
Tom sold it.
Well, yes.
Remember Tom and his profile picture?
Yeah, everyone was. Yeah,
That's still his profile picture on every social
Who's
media
your
he has.
friend?
Tom Anderson, yeah.
You know how many computer customers of mine I had whose niece or nephew put them on Facebook? I'm like, who is this Tom guy?
Yeah, right.
I don't know this guy. It's like it's.
Oh, you mean MySpace?
MySpace, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was your first friend.
Right.
When you
He's
started
automatically
your
a friend.
account.
Who is this guy?
Yeah. So anyway, this is again something you can look up. So DARPA had a project called LifeLog, and the concept of LifeLog was that it would be a social media based project that would have everyone involved, and everyone would put in everything they were doing all day long. And if you had millions of people using this program, then they were all putting these. You could start to plot data from it. You could start to see what people do and start to look at their habits, because think about Facebook. People put everything on there. People,
Oh, yeah.
things that like whatever. So you really have
Facebook just went through court about something very similar to this.
So this project, this DARPA project, was the concept was that if they could collect enough data from people's everyday activities, they could start to plot points and see what people do and really start to predict people's behaviors. And there was a whole lot of things that were, so the very day that product or that project was shelved was the day that Facebook launched.
Really?
Yeah. Again, this is something you can look up. And again, MySpace didn't go away because people were like, you know what, I don't really like MySpace. It was because Facebook just kind of pushed them out of the way, and it became the platform. And if you get into conspiracy theories and you think that there's a ruling class and all these things, that would make in complete sense to create this platform and have complete control of it, because you control all the ins and outs of it, and all
Yeah.
the thinking and the points of, yeah. So
And that leads into what I was just saying about the whole court thing. I don't know if you saw, like, I don't know how recent it was, within the past few years or even months. It was fairly recent, but like Mark Zuckerberg was like literally in front of the Supreme Court, and like you have all these old politicians that don't really understand the internet and stuff like that, and they're asking him questions like, if you collect this data, blah blah blah, and I delete my profile, do you still have access to the data, or can you still like all this stuff? And Mark Zuckerberg, like, I don't know. The question I just asked was pretty specific, so like I guess you could have a good answer to that. But the questions they're asking them, he's just like kind of puzzled. But at the same time, like, it's definitely true that they collect more data than they need to. Like cookies. Cookies. You're a computer guy. Cookies, I hate that whole thing. That whole thing kind of drives me a little bonkers, because I'll look up one thing on one of my like technology devices, like I'll Google search something on my computer, and then I'll be at work the next day on my phone, just scrolling through something, and I'll see an ad for whatever I Google searched the day before.
So cookies have something to do with that, but the main purpose for them, the reason why they were created, was to create a thumbprint of the site you were just on, so that the next time you go there, it loads up faster. That was really the whole point. It was just a small portion of that website again, and when you went back to it the next time, it didn't have to load the whole thing. And this comes from when the internet was slow, when everything was slow and computers were
dial
slow.
up.
So
You couldn't talk on the phone and use the internet at the same time.
And you had that little song and dance that it did before it actually was. The song,
Like a fax machine.
Yes, the
Like a fax
computers-
machine does to this day.
yes, the computer song of their people. Yeah. So that's where they originated from, and it still comes into effect even with faster computers. It's still, but it's obviously it's an exploit, and it's a way to. But the things that are those cross advertising things, I mean, again, getting into conspiracy theories, but it's not. Is that your phone is listening to you?
I'm glad you said that because I'm sorry to cut you off, but I've mentioned this before on here, and I was out to breakfast one time with Jared, and I don't know how you know Jared Ostrander. I don't think you do,
I don't think I do.
but he's a very good friend of mine. And we're out to breakfast one time, and so we brought up mouthwash somehow. We're talking about mouthwash. A couple minutes later, I'm scrolling through Facebook, ad for mouthwash, and I didn't even search it. I said it.
Everyone's
and everybody knows
experienced
this.
now.
Yeah.
It's happening. Like, and people talk about it all the time. Obviously, for what you and I used to do in that business, you're talking to me all the time. They're like, I was just talking about this, and then this ad pops up on Facebook, and it's absolutely true. Your phone, anything that has access to the internet has the ability to collect data. And so your smart TV, your telephone, all these things. And
Do you have Alexas?
I have the Google, the Google Home things.
Yeah.
And I know that they're listening. All
I
the
was gonna
time.
say I have an Alexa literally in every room in my house.
Yeah, because it's cool because you can tell it to play music.
Turn the lights on,
Yeah,
shit like that.
the
I think
lights.
it's so cool. But at the same time, like I do think like, how much is this thing hearing? Like, is there someone behind there like listening, or is it just like? But do you think there's a person like assigned to me that's listening?
No, I don't think that there's.
I gotta say something bad for it to be alarming, right?
I think that it would be if you ever became an issue or if you got in trouble or whatever, and they had a reason to look into your past. All that data is stored, and that's really the thing. No one's
Like if the
actively-
FBI is like looking into me for something or crime, and then that's their way in.
and they can go back through however many years you've had Alexa of all your
And
conversations.
okay,
if
so
they
it's
really
definitely
wanted to.
stored, right? It's probably stored.
Yeah, I mean,
Facebook stores everything, dude. So
They say they don't.
Amazon has to.
they say they don't, but they have access to a lot of information that they shouldn't. I mean, again, how many people have you talked to? Like, I was having a conversation about something,
Everybody.
and then the ad. popped up on my
Everybody.
phone. It's because it's
Anybody with a smartphone, it can't deny that.
There was there's some guy that was actually testing cell phones for when they were shut off to see if they were still emitting signal, and they were, and you could track a phone even when it was turned off. Like, it had very limited capability, but even when it was powered down, you could still, if you had the phone with you, you could still track the device. So, yeah, and if you think about it,
Big Brother's always watching.
yeah, I mean, if you had this ability, like we could really just happen to everything. Of course, it's happening.
Of course.
Yeah.
The technology's out there.
Yeah.
Street cameras, even, like stuff like
They're
that. Like,
everywhere. But whenever,
what about birds? Have you heard that conspiracy that like there's no
not
more
real.
they're not real, there's no birds, they're all like government fucking like
No,
things flying around. There's no way cuz I've picked up a dead bird before and like
but
mean-
there's
so people that don't know, there is a conspiracy out there that like birds aren't real. That's like a legitimate conspiracy, which is really funny if you follow it because like some of it's kind of like mind boggling, but at the same time like there's no way that like every bird on. Okay, back to what I was saying. The conspiracy here is that every bird is fake and that they're like robots from the government, like little drone things that look like birds, and they were created in like the 70s or 80s to just like watch everybody. So that's how Big Brother's always watching. That's how like the government knows shit. But then like if that was true, wouldn't they like catch fugitives faster and stuff? Like
a friend of mine was in the army so I graduated in 1993.
I was born then.
I know. And it was a friend of mine who was a year younger than me anyway. So this is back in that period of time.
Is it about the birds?
No, this is about government technology. He was in the army and he controlled satellites. The satellites back then could look into your window and watch you doing dishes and get your license plate and all that stuff. So the idea that
so they
would have
can
to
now
create-
then too.
Oh, it's way beyond that.
I was gonna say because you made it sound like back then they could do this, but like now they can't.
No, if they could do it back then the technology now
Oh,
is
God.
far greater. And so the idea of creating birds to spy on us really would be
Foolish,
very
right?
extra.
Very extra. But you were all right. So you're saying so back then the satellites could see this your license plate.
Yes,
Stuff
they
like
had that capability though. They could literally look right into your kitchen window and see into your house, and they could get license plates off cars. And this was back in like 96, 97.
that. Sure.
Yeah. So the technology, I mean, all of it. Think about the stealth bomber, which was, really engineered and designed and manufactured, I think in the 60s.
Stealth bomber. What's that?
The stealth fighter and the stealth bomber, those airplanes, the jet fighter that looks like it almost like
Oh, like Top Gun.
those are I think F-16s or
Okay, well, I don't know the code
the
word.
one that looks like a triangle.
Oh yeah,
The
okay.
cool black looking.
Yeah.
one, So all the stealth, there's a stealth submarine.
With like the little glass thing on top of it, right? Is it just the one person flying it?
Yes. But,
Okay, right.
So that plane, the technology is crazy, and it's been around for a very long time, and it got declassified, I don't know, back in the 80s or 90s or whatever, but they had it since the 60s, which just makes you realize that whatever they have right now that we're going to hear about 30 or 40 years down the road is going to be mind-blowing. Something well, actually, so this is a cool story. So this is, the God's honest truth. This is, so
Your Plattsburgh story, right? I've heard this before, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Same things happened to me. We've talked about our similar stories. So you go first, I'll go next.
there's an interesting, well, not interesting twist, but there's
We described the same object.
So yeah, so I was with a friend of mine.
Wait till you hear this, guys. Listen.
Yeah, this is. So we're maybe 30 minutes outside of Plattsburgh, coming from Glens Falls. So
You're on the highway.
and I had lived in Plattsburgh and Glens Falls both pretty evenly my entire life. So I've been back and forth on that stretch.
Did you go to school in Plattsburgh?
I did.
That's what I thought. Okay.
I'm originally from Glens Falls, but then I moved to Plattsburgh when I was like young until about 8th grade. Then moved back to Glens Falls and moved there again, and then went to college there, and so back and forth a lot. I've traveled I-87 from here to Plattsburgh
Probably even to Canada.
dozens of times. Yeah, and definitely into Canada. So there's a spot where you're coming out of the Adirondack Park where it's very heavily, forest woods. And the median, the sides, everything is all trees. It's hard to see anything other than what's directly in front of you. And there's a spot, again, about maybe a half an hour outside of Plattsburgh where you come out of this hill, and I can picture the spot perfectly. I couldn't, if anybody's ever driven through that.
I literally know the exact spot you're talking
And
about.
it
Yes.
all opens up.
Yep.
There's like fields on both sides. The median's completely clear. There's nothing, and you can see quite a ways down. And then you get into the apple orchards, and then you get into Plattsburgh. And so we come over this hill, and there's this thing above.
This is upstate New York for those of you that are out of the state.
Yeah. So there's this thing above the Northway, this big triangular thing that's like half the size of a football field, just sitting over the Northway, probably 30 feet off the ground, 30 feet above the Northway. So my friend, I'm not going to mention his name because he's retired military now, but that doesn't matter. He was military police. This guy was trained to observe. This is a guy who, if you know his backstory, is skeptical about everything. And both of us are like, what the fuck? As we're driving through, we're the windows down, and we're he's, got the hand on the wheel, and we're looking out the window as we drove underneath it. It was above the Northway. No sound, no wind, nothing moving. And as we were approaching it, when I first saw it, being so weird and out of context and trying to figure out what I'm looking at, I thought I saw something on a post because that's the only thing that would make sense. And as I got closer to it, there was just this thing floating in the air, and we drove underneath it. And I remember looking at the mile marker to see where we were, because again, I know that area really well, and we were coming back the next morning. And so we just drove right underneath it. I wish that we had stopped, but maybe that would have been a bad idea. I don't know.
Yeah, you would have been abducted, man.
Maybe, so I don't know. We kept going, and then the next morning we came back, broad daylight, knew right where we are, saw the mile marker. There was nothing there that could have been mistaken for a big giant floating object in the sky. It was nothing that was we weren't tricked by, there was definitely something there. So this was, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe. So Facebook comes around, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm talking about this, and I put up a post that said, have you ever seen anything that you thought was a UFO? And do you believe in that sort of thing? Just, to get a Facebook thing going, and tons of people commented. And one of my brother's friends, who literally just passed away, God rest his soul.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, super cool guy, but was into UFO stuff. So I described what I saw, and he private messaged me. He's like, dude, I know what you saw. And he sent me a link to this thing called the TR-3B. And he's like, it wasn't a UFO. It was actually military tech is what you saw. And he sent me this link, and I looked it up, and it was exactly what I saw. It was this big triangular thing.
Oh, wow. I don't think when we talked, I don't know if we got that far into it, or maybe we did, and I forgot. But...
I think I had you look it up, actually, and it was just a triangle.
Oh, yes, you did. Yeah,
There's
wow.
tons of pictures of it. A lot of people have seen it.
And that, and it's so funny because how I was just saying that we had similar stories. So the neighborhood I live in now is actually very close to where my uncle, my godfather, lives right down the road. Big Rick, shout out. So on weekends, I would always go over to Big Rick's house because him and my dad are best friends, but hence why he's my godfather.
Gotcha.
And I'm very good friends with his son Ricky. And we would always play manhunt because back in the day, kids would go outside and tell their parents they're going outside at 8 o'clock and come back at midnight, and it was fine. No one really cared. So we would like run around the neighborhood and just like play manhunt and tag and stuff like that. And I remember I was with my friends Ricky and Justin, and we're playing manhunt. We were like in one part of the woods, and then we see over there's like a green flashing light. This part's extremely true, and they'll both attest to this. But there's a green flashing light. We're like, what the hell is this? So then it disappears. But we start walking towards it, and then all of a sudden we see this triangular shaped like thing in the sky, right? And it's just sitting there. And there's 3 lights on the bottom of it. It's a triangle, a triangle like spaceship object. Exactly what you made me look up.
Yep.
Light on the top, and then 2 lights on the bottom. And we're looking at it. We're like, holy shit, what the hell is that thing? And then immediately flies away, right? So I totally forgot that we had this conversation in the past. Like I knew we talked about that, but I forgot the fact that you proved to me that it was a military thing, because forever we thought it was a UFO.
I thought the same thing for years.
I
after
remember
that.
this. What was that? Probably 6 years ago. He made me look this up. Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah.
And I same thing. And so when he sent me that link and I looked it up and I was like, that's exactly what I saw.
Right.
And the concept is that it's reverse engineered, UFO technology is the idea.
But it's crazy because how it just sits there, not making a noise, and it's just like literally like if you didn't look up and see it, you wouldn't know it was there.
No, and it wasn't. There was no like. You would think that something that was being held up off the ground would create some sort of
Wind, something.
Yeah.
No, it just sat there.
There was completely silent. No, like we drove underneath it, and excuse me, we're on the Northway, which if you're not from New York, that's the highway here. It's the only one we have.
Yeah, right. Seriously.
Yeah. But we were doing 75 miles per hour when we came up over that hill, and we slowed down probably to like 50.
And no wind effect.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And it was totally like, at that point you're still outside of you're in the middle of nowhere essentially, because you're just outside of Plattsburgh, and so there was no anything else going on in this thing, and fields on both sides of us. Nothing that could have
Yeah, it was just hovering. Well, like it's so funny because I saw
for years I was convinced that we had seen a UFO, and then this guy points this out, and that's exactly, and it's been seen all over the place. And so the tie-in here is Plattsburgh Air Force Base, though. That's really
Is it like Denver? Like Denver Airport?
no, that's another weird one.
I know,
That's
right?
a really weird one. Yeah, like anybody who hasn't looked that one up, just look up the artwork in Denver Airport. It's
Wild.
beyond wild. But yeah, Plattsburgh Air Force Base is one of the biggest, or was the biggest Air Force base on the East Coast, and they just shut it down. But it's still high activity there. I mean, I lived in Plattsburgh, been back and forth, and there's always helicopters going in and out. There's always, there's convoys of Humvees and shit like that. I mean, it's been a while since I've been there, but I remember seeing that stuff long after it was actually decommissioned. And there's a very likely story that there's a huge underground complex there.
In Plattsburgh?
Yeah. Have you ever heard the thing of the spider goats?
No.
Oh, this is a good one. So this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is actually
spider goat?
Started off as there was this. It was a conspiracy theory many years ago that the military was crossbreeding goats with spider DNA, and they weren't like goats with spider
What
legs,
the
which
fuck?
would be awesome. But
That's
no,
what I was picturing.
no. They were like, I essentially, from what I understand, they were regular goats, but it was their something with their milk. Spider silk is what they're after, and spider silk is for its tensile strength is really for what it is incredibly strong. So
Yeah.
they wanted to understand this literally technology from what spiders were, how they were making this silk and why it was so strong, and to adapt it to military applications. And so they crossbred the spiders with goats, and they were creating, I think it was from the milk of the goats that they were getting this material, which they later on turned into Kevlar, and and this is true. And this was something that started off as like, that's a fucking crazy conspiracy.
Yeah, what the fuck?
And then it was declassified, and it really happened at Plattsburgh Air Force Base, which again ties into the idea that there's a big facility there that's most likely. And that Air Force Base is huge, 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 huge. I lived in Plattsburgh for a long time and never had any idea how big it was. And I saw Fish in concert at the Plattsburgh Air Force Base. And
How high were you?
actually, it was really hard to find weed at that time. Yeah, it's true. It was the second night, and I was like, that's a whole nother story. But, so
You want me to edit that out?
no, you can leave that in. It's fine. It was like 1996, I think. So, whatever. Yeah.
Actually, it was really hard to find weed. That's funny.
It really was. But no, like I had no idea how big that place was. And so I've been to some cool concerts. This was the biggest show I've ever been to. There was 250,000 people there, roughly, to 250,000 people.
Jesus
At in one place, yeah. And so I'm tall, so I could see above everybody.
You are tall.
I'm in the middle of this crowd, and I'm just like, I've never been in this size crowd, this many humans in one spot. And we were a postage stamp on the field that we were in. That was Plattsburgh Air Force Base. Like, you had to walk across a field to get to another field, to this field that where the actual show was. And 250,000 people in a like this compared to this desk kind of idea. You know, it's just what you
Yeah.
can see. Yeah. And supposedly underneath that, there's stuff like labs, and I picture Resident Evil stuff, but in my brain. But yeah, and they were, you know, breeding spider ghosts. Who knows what they're doing there now? But I believe that thing that I saw was probably deployed from there, and that's probably why I saw it there. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. See, when I saw it, it was literally right down the road from where we are right now. Because the neighborhood, like I said, my godfather lives right up the road. That's where we saw it, up the road. Crazy. But like, still, we're not that far from Plattsburgh, so I guess that could make sense.
Yeah, I mean, you know, for how I'm sure these things travel really fast, it probably wouldn't be a big deal to get from
Wicked fast. When it flew away, it was like zoom.
Yeah. Well, however, it's defying gravity. It's obviously, you know,
Incredible.
Yeah, and it's beating other laws of physics, so it probably moves very quickly. And getting from Plattsburgh to, you know, I've driven from Plattsburgh to Glens Falls in like an hour.
Well, how fast are you going?
Like
Damn. Okay, that makes sense.
It was like 4 a.m, no cops anywhere, and just foot in the fan. Yeah.
And support for the Garage Boozing podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you with the best tools for your grooming experience. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide, and I have an exclusive offer for my listeners. 20% off plus free shipping when you use the promo code TGBP20 at manscaped.com. That TGBP obviously stands for the Garage Boozing Podcast. But all right, boys, trim that junk of yours. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code TGBP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com with promo code TGBP20. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
So another thing I wanted to ask you real quick. So we were kind of talking about it earlier, and I was like, oh, we're going to talk about this in the podcast. So I did kind of have it saved. So like cell phone technology, right? There was 4G speed. Now we're kicking into 5G and stuff like that. And I've seen like pictures where like 4G is just like a straight signal, but 5G is like bouncing out everywhere and like going through walls and shit. Like, dude, cell phone, like radiation, the fucking like stuff behind it, like we haven't been alive long enough to see the long-term effects from all of this, because like these smartphones have really only been like a huge thing for what, 10-15 years. Like, the
problem is that technology moves and you can't stop it. And so for us to say, you know what, we're not going to do 5G, we'd lose. The Chinese have deployed 5G before.
we got to do it.
We have to. Everyone has to be on the same. We have to be on par with, you know, our competition. So we can't go backwards. But, you know, any cell phone signals from the very beginning, going back,
not good for you.
No, it's radiation. It's microwaves. It's, you know, it's a lot of, I mean, just the electromagnetic energy that comes off of the wires in your house is enough to kind of fuck with your body, and it's not enough to
even a microwave.
You know, all these.
My
things.
grandparents always tell me not to stand next to the microwave. But when I cook food, I'm standing right next to it. I can't help it. I sit there and I wait for it to be done.
I sleep with my phone and I know better.
Oh, dude, on my chest right next to me, and it's so bad. They say that's very bad for you. I was going to ask you that.
It actually lowers your sperm count when you keep your cell phone in your pocket, for real.
That's why I can't keep it up.
Could be it, man. You're just shooting blanks.
I'm a virgin.
Are you?
No. Yes.
But yeah, no, I mean, we know that. That's a documented thing, and we still, you know, you're putting it right to your temple every time you answer a call.
I never knew that the sperm count thing was a thing, but that makes sense. That's why I've been doing a Blue Chew. Use promo code. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so 5G is it's a huge amount of bandwidth for one. I was surprised when I actually looked at the specs, and I obviously follow this stuff because of what I do. And I was really shocked at the amount of. So it's a way to transmit wirelessly what used to be like T1 type capability, or like really, you know, like it will basically make fiber optics. I mean, hardwire is always going to be better. If you can direct connect with something with a wire, it's always going to be the better.
I want
solution.
Fios.
But yeah, but FiOS to run all that fiber optic cable, I don't know if have you ever seen it installed?
No.
It literally is glass. That's fiber optic is it's glass fiber, and when you what's called terminating a cable, when you put an end on it, that requires a specialist. It's something that you can't just clip a thing on. There's like somebody who does this
Sure.
who's trained to do
Yeah.
this. And the wire itself is very brittle and delicate, and so you have to lay it a certain way because it can break. The bandwidth is crazy. It's really good, but 5G is a serious competitor with that. Again, hard connect is always better, but if you can shoot things wirelessly up in the North Country, where you don't really want to be running
South
5G.
Canada is what I like to call it.
Yeah, it is.
Seriously,
that's
people
good.
are like, "You're from New York? Yeah, what part of New York? Yeah, upstate. Like, I'm not from Manhattan, bro."
Upstate, bud.
But anyway, so you're saying,
So being able to do it wirelessly is certainly more cost effective.
yeah, of
And so
course,
that's
Like, more
really-
convenient too.
Which is what we're going to see up here. So fiber optic FiOS probably won't go any further than it is right now, which is fine. It isn't. But the amount of chatter that 5G puts in the air is definitely something to be concerned
And by
about.
chatter, you mean like signals and shit like that. Yeah, they're going through your body and shit,
It
man.
is. And your body is affected by these things.
Yeah, and
that's not hippie bullshit. That's like,
Not hippie bullshit.
it's
That's
not.
like scientifically proven.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying is like we have like the power of cell phones now has literally been a thing in like the past 10 years. Like 15 years ago we still had like flip phones and very basic phones, shit like that. So like we have this shit running through us every day, and you can't even see these like signals and like cell phone tower shit coming at you.
And the thing is that people that are
it's
designing,
scary. It's scary.
It is, and the people
We're
who
all
are-
gonna get cancer, I think.
Everyone's.
I hate to say that, but
So I'm in my 40s, and when I was a young kid, I remember that cancer was a very rare thing, and I remember like it was somebody old. If somebody had cancer, it was like somebody's aunt that was like in their whatever. And now it's like everybody you know.
Everybody has someone they know that's like had cancer, died of cancer, and it's fucking terrible.
I had an ex-girlfriend pass away at 24 years old who had breast cancer, and at the time, now it's more common, but at the time they're like, you have nothing to worry about. You're 24. It doesn't.
And she died?
She died.
Oh man.
Yep. And it's
Do you think there's a cure?
yeah.
There's got to be, right?
It's a huge.
Conspiracies.
If we're going to talk about conspiracy theories,
There's got to be.
it's a huge cash cow. It to heal everybody. To
It
make
is a
everybody-
cash cow,
yeah,
dude.
Like what would happen to
Chemo makes so much money for these hospitals, man.
we may have touched this on this the last time, but it's one of those things that has not evolved that should have. Technology, well, as we were saying earlier, moves
Yeah.
in a certain, and you can document it, you can predict it. We know how technology jumps, and they've pretty much accurately predicted what we're going to have, as the years progress. Everything has moved according to that, except for automobiles, because we're still using gas.
Yeah.
And medicine.
Draft Top. The Draft Top was designed to give you a better drinking experience all around, and this is how. So you take your beer can, place it in your hand, and then you take our cool little nifty Draft Top, you stick it right on top of the beer can, give it a little squeeze, and then a little friction, a little to the left, a little to the right. Boom, that easy. You take the tool, push it right inside, and guess what? It just took the top of your beer can right off. By removing the top of the beer can, you get an all-around better drinking experience. You can smell the aromas of the alcohol, you can chug your beer a hell of a lot faster. So forget about a red Solo cup, I'll fill you up. Draft Top just turned your beer can into a cup. So I want you to have one, you want you to have one, Draft Top wants you to have one, and you can get yours now at www.drafttop.com. And don't forget to use promo code 10%-garageboozing at checkout. That is 10%-garageboozing for 10% off www.drafttop.com site-wide. Get yours now, thank me later. All right, back to the show.
Well, not a conspiracy, but just kind of my theory on what this is all about.
Not a conspiracy, but a theory. Isn't that the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, so it's sort of the why of why we're here, and a lot of this comes from.
Do you want a shot while you tell the story?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's make that happen. So a lot of this comes from drugs.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, that's what you did. I learned a lot from. So, and a lot of it from. So, string theory, and the idea that that this reality is only as real as we perceive it is the concept. And
So you think it's real or you think it's not real?
Is this the Matrix? Like that's the best.
So we're in a pod right now is what you're saying.
maybe not a pod.
Do you look like what you look like outside of the pod?
I don't think it's as cut and dry as that. I think
Because that's how it was in the Matrix.
The Matrix was a cool story, and it took that concept and made a really cool movie out of it. But my feeling is
Simulation. Moral of the story here. That's for those of you that haven't seen the Matrix. It's like a simulation. Like
so. My theory is that it would explain a lot. So as a kid, when you start to question everything, and you know that everything has a beginning and an end, and you question the universe, like, is there a beginning and an end to the universe? There can't be, right? It has to go on forever.
yeah, but there has to be a beginning. Everything starts somewhere.
And the basic laws that apply to everything else, yes, but
Big Bang bullshit.
is there a spot where the universe ends and there's nothing there? Like you
Oh,
fall,
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea that this is just a simulation like the Matrix would explain that. Like, so it's not as.
But
real.
how? How would like make me think that we're actually in a simulation
Okay.
right now?
So have you ever had a dream where you know you're dreaming? Like lucid
Yeah.
Dream? Okay.
Isn't that
So,
lucid dreaming or is that different?
Lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming means a couple, but yes, a very where you're aware that you're dreaming. It's
But you're
still-
in the dream.
But it's still as real as this conversation that you and I are having right now. And so I personally had a dream like that where I was standing in this room and there was a table next to me, and I remember thinking, I'm dreaming right now. I know this is a dream, and I like knocked on the table and it was real. And then I woke up
And it feels real too.
yeah, it was very real. And so the concept as a young kid that I sort of came up with in my head is that maybe it is real, but it's just like a Etch-a-Sketch where you just shake it up. You're probably not old enough to. You know,
Oh, and yeah.
And so when your dream ends, it's not static like the world we live in. So when you go to sleep, everything's where you left it. Your clothes are still on the floor from the night before, and all these things are right where you. So it seems real. Because,
Okay.
But if you were to put on a virtual reality headset that was really convincing and be in it for a while, you wouldn't know the difference between what was real and what wasn't. That's a fact. That's your brain it only knows what it sees, and so all of this is very convincing. But maybe it's not real. Maybe this is just a. So my theory.
So you said maybe it's not real.
Yeah. So my theory kind of grew from there, and my theory on all of this, the meaning of life, and why we're here, and what all this is about, or maybe a intro to all of that is, I believe that our spirit, your soul, what makes you, your personality, because someone could look just like you, and you start talking like that's not Chase. If someone knows you, they know your personality, and that's how they know you.
I have a great personality, by the way.
Yeah, no, that's why we hang out.
Yeah, my dude.
So my point is though that everybody, that's what makes you different. Whatever is that force that's driving this, body, this meat bag is that
Meat bag.
as it were, is something different. Is something separate from this physical reality that we live in. That is the real, tangible thing that I feel is. So I think your spirit is something that's sort of harvested on this planet. I think that the whole reason that Earth is here. So going back to the very beginning, I believe that spirit energy flows through the universe in this, this simulation that we're in, or it flows maybe outside of that, but it's maybe contained or it's allowed into this thing. And here on Earth, it's sort of like a refinery for that. Like you would refine crude oil into gasoline. And that spirit energy comes in as just this raw energy, but it's a very powerful thing. And then it goes into you and me, or maybe it starts off as a cricket, maybe it starts off and then it's a cat, and then it's a dog or a horse, and it as it has more experience as a living, as we say, living thing, and it starts to grow, and then it become a human, and then you go through the experiences of human life, and you learn how to to take care of yourself, to love someone, to all these things that cultivate this energy into something more. And then, this is where it gets kind of weird, but this is what I believe. I believe that is a very powerful and valuable thing. And I believe that if you, like the whole heaven and hell thing, I don't really believe in, but I do believe there's a push and pull of good and bad and opposites. And I think that...
Well, there's good people and bad people.
There are some good people and there are some bad people. And I think that that your soul is almost like a currency for the larger, picture, and that whatever direction you go in, that's a real thing. We came up with these very basic concepts of heaven and hell, and it was a very easy way to illustrate it. But I think that that's what it's all about. I think that Earth is a Goldilocks planet that was set up. And when we talked about the moon thing, I think it was set up to be a perfect environment for this to happen.
Which it almost is.
It totally
is.
Beyond being just a coincidence that it worked out well, it worked
out fantastic. Well, dude, We build
Every-
houses with
every
heat,
aspect-
electricity.
every
Like,
aspect of our lives on this planet is very precisely engineered.
And
There's no two ways about it. And whether you believe in a higher power or God or whatever you want to call it, this is to think that this happened by accident and that we just sprung from the dirt is really far less likely. If you-
and try to explain to me here how it's just an accident that all of us listening to this, me and you, everyone we know, happens to be on Earth now. That we're going through all this now. So it's just like, yeah, we can read history books. We can say this was scientifically proven 100, 200 years ago. But how do we absolutely know for sure? We don't. So that's got to get you kicking, you know? And that I want to believe heaven and hell. I want to say, like, I believe in this and that. But I have so many questions. And it's just so wild to me because, like, back to what you're saying about, like, you're, like, here on Earth, we're energy and stuff like that. So where am I actually?
So I think like the whole Matrix concept.
Yeah,
where,
like
they
the
was in that pod.
simulation. Like where am I? Like I can feel me doing this. I can feel me poking my chest.
But maybe think about it this way: like if you could actually enter into a computer program, if you're like you could take away your body and just the energy that's your
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. I don't think you're somewhere else. I think that that's really all there really is. I don't think there's a body.
So you
someplace.
you think that we are just like part of the program
I
essentially?
think that it's a simplified
There's something bigger
way-
out there.
This physical world that we live in is a simplified way for that spirit energy to learn.
Are we
To-
The Sims?
Maybe.
No, seriously. Seriously though.
I've wondered that a lot. Think games like that, you start to think like I remember playing The Sims one. This is kind of funny. I'm sitting there and I'm playing it for hours, and I'm like, I'm really thirsty, and I'm treating my Sims better. I've given them water, and I haven't had a drink of water or taken a piss in like 3 hours, and like I'm treating the game better than and then I was like, it's time to turn it off. It's time to
Yeah.
shut the game down. But I've wondered games like that. You start to wonder, like it's like you're looking in, it's like you're playing God. And that another thing where I do believe in God. I believe in a higher power. I don't not necessarily the Christian or Catholic or Muslim or any.
But there's a God.
A higher power.
It's something, yeah.
And people say, well, if there's a God, then how do children die and how do horrible things happen to good people? And I really believe, and I use The Sims as an analogy, that God is the watcher and that this higher power is watching, and when you play The Sims, it's more interesting to see what happens in a natural, like, because the Sims have their own AI, and
Yeah.
watching them do their own thing is cool. And when you if you put the cheat codes in, then it kind of becomes boring because now you've totally got control over it. You know what's going to happen, and it gets it wears thin. And the idea is that if you're God and you created all this, you would just want to watch it unfold. And
Yeah.
if you got involved, you change the beautiful randomness of everything. And that's really what makes life exciting. You don't know what's going to happen in the next day except for what you go out and get it. But you know what I mean? Like you don't know. Like if you knew exactly every day what was going to happen, it'd be like, Groundhog Day and you just want to kill yourself, like,
No, for real.
Yeah.
Now, do you think anybody actually knows what happens when you die? I don't think anybody can tell us that, right?
I mean, unless you actually die, so no. I mean, people.
There's people that have died for a couple minutes and been like, "Oh, I went to the gates of heaven," but like, I
I wonder,
maybe they're dreaming that.
I'm well enough grounded in reality to think that could just be their brain getting fucked up from your near death experience, and you might just be in your
Seeing what they want to see or
yeah,
something like that,
yeah,
right?
Who knows? But a lot of people do describe the same stuff that the white light, and some people talk about some very specific things about people that had passed away, relatives that came and like it's not your time, and I wonder, I do wonder.
And there's also like the theory out there that like when you die, you're done. It's just like you like when you go to sleep. Sometimes you do, so a lot of us do. Actually, they say you always have dreams, but like you don't remember them. There are times where like you and I, anybody will go to bed. And then it's like you go to bed and it's like a snap of a finger, you're awake. It's the morning. You don't remember anything from the middle of the night. Me, I wake up a million times in the middle of the night. I can never sleep the whole night unless I'm like blackout drunk. Sorry, Dad. But yeah, that's just the truth. But yeah, so like when you go to bed and then it's like a snap of a finger, it's 8 hours later and you're waking up. And there's a lot of people that think when you die that it's just like how it is when you're sleeping, but you don't wake up. So like.
I read a book when I was a teenager called On a Pale Horse. It was by Piers Anthony, really good book. And the concept of the book, without getting into all of it, was that this guy who's a regular human becomes the Grim Reaper. He becomes death. And his job is to show up when you're dying. And he weighs your soul and you either go to heaven or hell. And it's a cool story. There's a part in it where he shows up and this guy has slit his wrists and he's in the tub and he's dying, and he's an atheist and he doesn't believe in heaven or hell. And all the other times that he's gone to collect the souls, they see him. When they're about to die, they see him. In that last moment, they see him standing there, and they can actually see him where otherwise they couldn't. And he walks in, and this guy's dying, and he never sees him. And then when he dies, he just fades away. And that's because that's what he believed.
Oh God!
Yeah,
Oh wow!
that he believed that everything just stopped.
That just gave me chills.
Yeah,
No,
it was a cool. Like I remember reading that.
the
and thinking,
concept.
like, the idea is that yes, that you have control over that. That if you believe that's what happens, then that's what happens. And if you believe that there's more, then that's what happens.
So almost like if you believe in heaven and hell, you're gonna go to heaven and hell.
Yes, and so that brings me actually to another thing about like the whole judgment and stuff. Like if there is a heaven and hell, I don't believe in like the flaming hell and like heaven pearly gates. I don't think that. I think that's a dumbed down. But I do believe that there are different places for different people, because there are some good people and bad people. Like
There's
you
some
said.
very bad people,
Yeah.
man.
But I think a lot of it at the end comes down to you judge yourself. I really believe that. I think that when you die, this isn't just my theory, but I think that when you die, you're very aware. You're still your body. You've detached from your body, and it's just and you probably are aware of a lot more things than I can even imagine right now. But I think that everything you've done is before you, and you judge yourself.
If
Because
you're
you know what
morally a
you've
good
done.
dude, yeah, I feel like you can tell if you're morally a good person or a bad person. Like,
yeah.
oh, but there is morally good people and morally bad people. Like,
But it makes you wonder about like the idea of guilt and things like that are just kind of seeded.
guilt
into
hits
it.
me so hard, dude. Like
Yeah,
the
and,
worst
like-
thing I used to hate growing up is like when like my dad would say like I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. We've all heard that.
That's a
but like
different kind of-
seriously,
yeah.
that is like the ultimate guilt. If you want to crush my soul and make me feel terrible, that's all you need to say.
But it was more effective than getting a spanking.
Absolutely. Oh,
It was,
absolutely. Absolutely.
I got spanked as a kid, and I'm not scarred from it, but I never spanked my kids, and I found it was far more effective. Well, I have a very scary dad voice, and so it was, I never had to.
I
spank
hope
my
I
kids.
never hear it.
Yeah, if I, it's like that look that Samuel Jackson gets.
Oh God. Yeah.
And the kids are like, "Oh, I should stop doing whatever it is that I'm doing right now," and yeah, it was effective. I don't know where we were going with that.
No, just like guilt. Guilt is far worse than punishment, I think.
It is, and So I think that's a very effective tool for your dad to use, where you didn't, or like rather than you being like, "Shit, I'm gonna get my ass beat," like, "Oh, I really fucked up."
I made him feel.
My dad's disappointed with me.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I hate disappointing
It's a
anybody.
Whole different level of where you're actually and you're conscious of what and you're thinking about what you did.
Yeah, and when
Rather
I
than
feel-
be
when I
like,
feel
fuck
gu-
you for spanking me, Dad.
Yeah, when I feel guilty, I feel guilty. So like that's what you're saying. Like at the end, like it's either you feel guilty, everything's laid in front of you, or you don't.
Yep. And I think that in that the concept that you judge yourself, every decision that you make in your life, for the most part, if if you got your head screwed on, you know the difference between right and wrong.
Of course.
And sometimes you choose to do the wrong things. We're
And they
all
call that
guilty of it.
temptation. That's like the fruit that Adam and Eve grabbed or whatever.
Exactly.
Sure.
And so that whole thing, I believe that all the things from the Bible were really just references to certain things that could happen in your life and how to. I think it was more of a loose idea of here's a situation and here's how it was handled and here's how you could have handled it, sort of
Right.
thing. I think that all the stories in the Bible were, I think that was more, and people take things way too seriously, and I think that's why a lot of people stray away from a religion, because they really believe that the strict guidelines, like especially the Catholic religion, that puts down that if you don't do these things, you're gonna go to hell, you're gonna burn.
Sex before marriage, you're going to
Yeah,
hell.
like
Like, yeah.
But a lot of that stuff came out of the Dark Ages, when people were literally shitting in the streets, and where religion stepped in and be like, all right, we need to like dial these people in because they're literally dying in their own filth, and like I think a lot of that comes from that, but also a way to control people. If you
But at the same time, I do want to say, like, the weird thing is, all of that could be true. It could be.
totally.
And that's the thing, like I love talking conspiracy and stuff like that too, because it makes me think other directions. But at the same time, when you have a book like the Bible that is so old, that like it literally could be true.
There's actually quite a few things that were in the Bible that actually came to pass. I couldn't tell you specifically what they are, but
The flood, I'm pretty sure, isn't that scientifically proven now that the flood happened?
Almost every single when we were talking last time about indigenous people on this planet, they're the roots of humanity when they sprung up from whatever continents. Almost all of them have a flood story. Almost every one
Yeah.
of them talk about a flood, and there's some evidence of it. I don't know how I feel about that, but I think that the idea of Noah putting two of all that. If anything like that happened, what probably happened was more of a DNA thing, like a seed bank, like not two animals, but actual DNA, like something more technological.
You think they could have had DNA back then, though?
Yeah, so I used to be one of these people that didn't believe any of this. I thought everything was bullshit. I was, everything was black and white to me. It had to be proven to me. And I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't doubt really much anymore.
Right? Because
I
like,
think-
how can you prove everything? You
I think
can't.
we've been lied to about a lot of things, and I believe that there's been probably a few different generations of humans on this earth, or something similar to us, or whatever. And I think that we probably get in different levels of technology. Something happened, and we had to reset. I really believe that. There's a lot of evidence to that. There are places they found that looked like a nuclear bomb went off.
Right, yeah.
In a city that was like thousands of years old, where they didn't have any technology, and there's melted stone. There's like, it looks like a nuclear blast, like Hiroshima looked. Like,
Right.
It's very similar. The pyramids, again, nobody can explain how those things were built. Like
I was just gonna bring that up. Yeah.
still can't pull that shit off. Every doorway and the
So everything's perfect about it.
dead perfect. Like I think you and I talked about this one time at work. All the doorways in the Great Pyramid, the right angles in the doorways are dead nuts to the end of the universe.
Perfect.
There's no tolerance at all. They're literally dead on. The points of the pyramid aren't exact on, but they're almost exactly to the cardinal points of north, south, east, west. Why would you?
I want to see the pyramids before I die.
Me too.
I
But
think
have
it's
you
so
ever
cool.
seen like an outside shot of the pyramids and what's around it? There's like a McDonald's.
Yeah.
And it's like you imagine it in your mind as like
It's like just a desert.
you have to get in like a Jeep to drive out in the desert. to
Yeah,
see
and it's
them.
not like that at
It's
all.
literally right at the edge of town. Like you can go and get pizza.
You say Pizza Hut?
Yeah.
It's so
And,
true.
and Egypt is weird these days. I have a few friends that were in the military that had to go through there, and they're like, "Yeah, the pyramids are cool, but Egypt's kind of
Yeah,
Egypt." Yeah. I'd still love to see it.
absolutely. It's on my bucket list all day.
All right, folks, let me tell you all about the pump action shotgun tool. Whoa, there's a tool for shotgunning? Hell yeah, there is. So listen to this. The pump action shotgun tool, created by the Drunk Engineers. Love that name, by the way. It makes shotgunning a hell of a lot easier, and let me tell you how. So you're going to take your beer, and you're going to stick it right in the shotgun tool, like this. Hold it like that so the air pockets are up here, and then you're going to give it a little squeeze. You're going to hear pop, bam, pop. But look at that. No mess. So right now the air pocket's right up here, and you're going to want to make sure you take this, push that down, and then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate the tool. Hold the beer can in place to the mouthpiece. Then you're going to put your mouth on the mouthpiece and shotgun. And boom, no mess. You can shotgun at the dinner table, family events, wherever you want with absolutely no mess. So forget shotgunning, slamming a knife right through. Yeah, not a thing anymore. Thanks to the pump action shotgun tool by Drunk Engineers. And you can get yours right now. So just log on to www.drunkengineers.ca. Don't forget to use promo code GarageBoozing for 15% off site-wide. That's right, promo code GarageBoozing for 15% off site-wide. Go get yours now. Thank me later. Back to the show.
So, I think we're ready to end the night here with a beer review. What do you think?
I'm ready.
Are you ready? I've been hyping this up all night that it's a malt beverage. It's actually not technically a beer, I don't think. I'm going to read the can and describe more here. But what I've got for us here today is, you might have heard of this. I have never heard of this. The original Club Tales Alabama Slammer.
I have not. 10%.
This is 10% premium cocktail, it says. Southern cocktail featuring perfect mix of orange, peach, apricot, and cranberry. You can buy this at a gas station. So in New York, you can only buy beer at a gas station. You can't buy wine. You can't buy liquor. You got to go to a liquor store for that.
The way around it is the malt beverage.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
Which is honestly should be a red flag, but
This is a cocktail in a can. Essentially is what this is.
I'm ready.
Oh, dude, read the top of it. It says cocktail in a can.
You weren't just reading that?
I didn't even read that. I swear I did not see that it said cocktail in a can until I literally said, this is a cocktail in a can, and then I read it. No bullshit. I did not even see that at the store when I bought it. It's in very small letters here. If you're looking on YouTube, look at that. Very small. Very discreet. I know what that word means. That's funny. That is funny. All right. So this is 1 pint, 16 full ounces. Oh, it actually smells pretty good.
Does it?
Take a little sip. Let's go.
It smells like orange juice.
You don't like that, do you?
I don't.
Really?
No.
Well, on the reviews here, I always let the guests go first. But again, this is the original Club Tales Alabama Slammer. Southern cocktail featuring perfect mix of orange, peach, apricot, and cranberry. Premium cocktail, 10%. Cocktail in a can. 10%, by the way.
So imagine taking a Dixie cup and putting some dirt in it and some battery acid and some orange juice.
And that's what you taste.
And then heating it up in the microwave. Actually, a styrofoam cup, so it melts a little bit.
Sure.
Yep. And then drinking that.
All right. So give us your scale.
I'm
0 to 10.
I'm gonna give it a 0 because
A flat 0.
yeah, because I don't think I really want to drink any more of it. Yeah, and I'm not being a
So you're telling me there's no worse beer or alcohol in a can that you could have than that?
I think there are probably other zeros out there, but this is definitely one of them. That
You're
was,
being for real.
yeah, that was awful. Yeah, I'm normally like, if it's okay, it's okay, but I'm gonna take another sip just to be fair because when you first open the can, like who knows how long it's been sitting, and there could be some funk on the bottom.
Sure.
Needed to air out a little bit, but
Give it one more sip.
it still smells like shit. Yeah, that's awful.
So you're staying with the 0.0.
I'm gonna give it a 0.1 because I know that you like these numbers, but that is if I could give it a negative number,
Okay, so I use this term very lightly. I hate to say this term, but Ben, you are an ignorant fool. I love saying that term, by the way.
I am.
Ignorant fool. And I'm going to tell you why.
You like it?
I fucking love it.
really?
This is very good. Yes, this is extremely good. I honestly, like, I can't believe, I'm shocked that you didn't, when I smelled it, I was like, wow, this smells good.
I feel like
I'm going to say, though, it's no Utica Club. Shout out Ray Rod. That Utica Club 9.2 all day. This, I'm not going to throw in the nines.
it reminds me of when you take the garbage out and the bag has been leaking and there's some of the like liquid.
No fucking way. So, most of the time, I'm glad that you disagree with me because most of the time when I do these reviews, everybody's like on the same page, like, oh, this is good, this is bad. I'm glad that you hated it because I like it a lot. Like, I would travel 45 minutes to that beer store 45 minutes away to get this.
So the last podcast that we did, you told me ahead of time that it was going to be Foster's, and I had Foster's in the past, and I was completely
Foster's.
Australian phobia. I was 100% expecting to hate it, and it was actually not bad at all. That was awful.
Really?
Yeah, no, I
Really?
didn't like it at all.
I'm blown away. Because what scares me here, then again, I've had a few shots and a few beers, so maybe I'm just being like a fool at the moment, but like, I don't taste the alcohol here. Do you taste the alcohol in that?
No, and it's not the alcohol.
It tastes like juice.
It tastes like
It does not taste like the bottom of a garbage can. It does not.
there's. You know how have you ever had cider that was sitting in the refrigerator for too long and
Yes.
it goes hard? As a kid, that was
This tastes way better than that.
not a fan.
I'm blown away. So anyway, I didn't even rate this yet.
I didn't know what to expect. I wasn't sure if it was going to be like fruity or like a beer or whatever. And
Very good. Very, very, very good. Very good.
So what do you rate?
I will say Utica Club I do like a little better than this. I would travel an hour and a half to get Utica Club. And I would travel 6 hours to get Natural Light, so don't get me started there. But this, not in the nines for me, but I'm going to give it an 8.9. Very close. Very close. 8.9. This was fantastic. Very good. And the fact that you hated it blows my mind. I'm amazed. So do me a favor, don't drink any more of that because if you don't want it, I'm going to drink it.
All you, bro.
I do just want to shout myself out here how like I looked at it and I was like, "Oh, it's a cocktail in a can." And then I literally see cocktail in the can right on top of it.
That was a good call. I honestly don't.
I was at the store and I saw Alabama Slammer. I'm like, "All right, that's cool."
Isn't that a mixed drink though?
I don't know. Actually, you know what's funny? I know it from being a wrestling move. There's a wrestling finishing move called the Alabama Slammer. Hardcore Holly used to take this guy over his shoulders and slam him on the ground.
That's why you bought it.
And that
is exactly why I bought it because I saw Alabama Slammer and I was like, oh, wrestling, we all know I love wrestling. But yeah, that's good. But on that note, all right, beer review's over. Conspiracy talk is over. I said it before mid-podcast. I'm naming this episode longest episode ever because that's exactly what it is. But all right, so beer review's done. Conspiracy theory talk is done.
Can we rate that whiskey?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's for a cheap bottle of whiskey. That's pretty good.
I'm not cheap. Are you kidding me? Dude, that was like $70.
Was it?
No, it was $12. $12. Yeah, it's what is it? Kentucky Gentleman?
Yes.
Yeah, Kentucky Gentleman. It was like a $12 bottle, but I'm not gonna lie, very good. I keep it in the freezer. Fantastic to rip shots of. Yep. I'm a shot guy. I like taking shots. Why sit there and sip a beer when you can take a shot and get loaded faster?
I agree. Yeah.
Makes sense, right?
It's efficient.
If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense.
Yes.
But it does make sense.
Spoken like yes, the U.S. men.
He's like, yes, I already made the joke earlier.
Yeah.
Spoken like a true what?
Salesman.
Yeah, right? Seriously, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. But all right, on that note, folks, thank you so much for joining us once again on this episode of the Garage Boozing Podcast. Ben, thank you so much. I'm telling you, Ben will be back again because we already had a list of shit we didn't even bring up. So I'm fluent conversation trumps everything.
For anybody who's watching who's into conspiracy theories, leave a comment on something you'd like to hear about because there's a lot of things that I have dug into that we didn't bring up tonight. So if anybody wants to,
which there was a comment left on when I posted the picture of us and saying that you were going to be on Tuesday. Someone did say jet fuel doesn't.
So I dug really deep into 9/11.
We'll get into that next time. We'll get into that next time.
That's kind of a played thing, but if anybody wants to, leave a comment if anybody wants to hear.
It's a 9/11 conspiracy theory. Jet fuel doesn't steel beams.
There's
I think
so much. There's so much to that one. There's so much. Yep.
We'll get into this later.
Yes.
So guys, thank you again one more time for joining us on this episode of the Garage Boozing Podcast. Ben, thank you for being my guest. And we'll see you nerds. I always say we'll see you nerds next week, and then I go into the outro where I say the same thing after. So you know what? This episode is just going to end, and then the outro is going to hit now. See you later.
Whew. What an episode. I knew bringing back Ben Wilcox to the podcast would be a fantastic idea, and I knew you guys would love it. Great conversation, great episode. Ben Wilcox, thank you so much for being my guest. I know you will be back soon. But folks, don't forget, the absolute number one way to support the brand, buy some merch. We've got hats, we've got hoodies, we've got t-shirts, we've got sweatshirts. You name it, we've got it. And you can get your merch today at www.garageboozing.net. And please don't forget to follow the brand on all of your favorite social media accounts at Garage Boozing as well as YouTube. And of course, don't you dare forget to hit that like, follow, subscribe button, whatever the hell it is, on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Pandora, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, you name it, we're there. So give us a follow, like, subscribe, whatever the button is, so you can be notified as soon as a new episode is released. But with all of that being said, I cannot thank you guys enough for tuning in once again to another episode of the Garage Boozing Podcast. But this is all the time we got, so I'll see you nerds next week.
Ladies, gentlemen, and nerds. Do you have what it takes to be a guest on the fastest growing, alcohol chugging, and nonsense talking podcast? Well, now is your chance. The Garage Boozing Podcast has new guests every week, and you could be one of them. Just simply log on to www.garageboozing.net. Click the Be on the Show tab and submit your information. It's that simple. Join the BOOZEMENT or be a loser. Don't miss your chance because we're taking this to the moon.